the right to know one's genetic origin in relation to assisted reproduction in the Czech Republic, because it's the topic of my research, as far as I am PhD student at Faculty of Law in Brno. So let's start with terminology. Can you see how it's changed to another slide? Is it working?
Yes. We can see the terminology slide now.
Yes. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So finding a precise and unified definition of assisted reproduction is quite complicated, because there are not only differences on an international scale, but also there are differences at the national level in the Czech Republic. As far as the World Health Organization was also aware of the inconsistency of the interpretation of this word, so they decided to establish the International Committee Monitoring Assisted Reproductive Technologies, and they define assisted reproduction as all treatments or procedures that include the in vitro handling of both human oocytes and sperm or embryos for the purpose of establishing a pregnancy. In the Czech legislation, there is a problem that we have two acts that regulate this area. The first one is Act on Specific Health Services, and this act they define artificial insemination as well as assisted reproduction. But then we have civil code, and in civil code we have only provision about establishing paternity to the child. And the problem is that this act uses only the term artificial insemination. So it is quite unique to not have determination in legal legislation united. So it's quite really unique. Then I would like to move to parenthood. I'm sure that you all know that we have parenthood genetic, which is that the parent and the child have the same DNA. Then we have biological, which is, for example, the mother carrying baby conceived from another woman's egg. Then we have legal, which is the one that is designated by the law of the country. And then we have the social parent, that is one who actually raises and takes care of the child. Now I would like to move to donors of the genetic material, and based of the origin of the genetic material, we can divide assisted reproduction on homologous and heterologous. Homologous techniques use eggs and sperms from the couple, while heterologous techniques use only genetic material from different people, so-called donors. In the Czech Republic, donors can only be women in the age between 18 to 35 years old, and men in the age between 18 to 40 years. There are also some other requirements, for example, that these people, they need to have sufficient legal capacity. They can't be placed in cell, prison, police custody, isolation, or hospitalized without consent. So now the most important question is, who is the parent of the child? If we talk about the homologous technique, it's quite easy, because the genetic material comes from the couple, so they are as genetic parents as legal. But if we talk about heterologous techniques, so the situation is quite complicated, because the genetic material doesn't come from the infertile couple. So in the Czech Republic, the mother is the woman who has given birth to a child, which is quite common in many countries. And if we talk about establishing paternity, we have three presumptions of establishing paternity. And for cases related to the assisted reproduction, the most important is the first presumption and the first and half presumption. So if the woman who is going to have a baby conceived by assisted reproduction and she is married, the father of the child is her husband. And if she is not married, so then she needs a man who gives consent to the artificial insemination, and then he becomes the father. Now we can move to the principle of strict mutual anonymity, because in the Czech Republic, there is really strict mutual anonymity between donor and the infertile couple, and also between donor and the child. So there is no possible way how to find out any information about the donor or someone who gives material about it or who knows anything about it. And moreover, there is a section in Act on Health Services, which makes the provider to maintain confidentiality of all facts that they find out in connection with assisted reproduction. So it's really impossible to find out who is a genetic parent. So it's really like this. Then we need to talk about if it's really anonymity, if it's really so important, and it really should be like this, because it's quite controversial. Many people say that it is against children's rights guaranteed by the Convention on the Rights of the Child, because Article 7, Paragraph 1 says that the child shall be registered immediately after birth and shall have the right from birth to a name, the right to acquire a nationality, and as far as possible, the right to know and be cared for by his or her parents. The problem is with the part as far as possible, because in my opinion, it is not really possible to know the right to know the parent and be cared by him, because we need to realize that there is also another part of this case, and it's donor and his or her right for privacy. And we need to realize that in most cases, donors really don't want to be parents of the child. They just try to help another people to have children. And it's also, for some people, it's also just a job, so-called job, because they earn some money for it. So in my opinion, it's not possible to make them care for children. Also, we need to realize that if we look at Great Britain, so there is a possible decline of donors because they have full identification of donors, and because of this, the number of donors declined. So it's quite risky, if we can call it like this. Other argument is that it should have it's necessary for children to know health predispositions, because it's really important for them to know how everything is with their health. But in this point, it's really not relevant, because in the Czech Republic, we have section in Act on Specific Health Services, which says that the provider of assisted reproduction has to keep all data of health information of the donor for 30 years. And if there is any necessity or anything, so the infertile couple or also the child can ask for it, and then the provider has to give it to them. So it's not really like a good argument in this point of view. Then another strong argument is that it should have similar mode to adoption, because in the Czech Republic there is a provision which says that an adoptive parent is required to inform the child of the adoption, but we need to think about it as like assisted reproduction is not similar to adoption at all, because in my point of view, it's only different way of conceiving a child, and adoption is totally different thing. It's not really similar. So in my point of view, it's really shouldn't have analogous mode to adoption. Now let's look at some important decisions. So in case of Odievre versus Ferenc, the European Court of Human Rights said that it is important to protect also third parties, such as other family members, because they also have right to respect for their private and family life. This case was about anonymous childbirth, but I suppose that it's quite similar to assistive reproduction, so we can use it. And in the Czech Republic, the most important decision was made in 2007, when the court said that the genetic link determining the aspect is not absolute, and the specific circumstances of the case must always be considered. Thus, it cannot be stated absolutely that genetic, possibly biological parenting is really more important for a child than legal parenting. And this opinion approves also Model Family Code, because they declare that the genetic links between parent and child cannot be neglected at all, but they must always be measured against the best interest of the child. The most relevant example of it is Article 3, Paragraph 8, which says that it is possible for a genetic parent of the child to challenge the parentage of legal parents, but no challenge may be lodged by an intentional donor of genetic material. So that's all from me. I would like to thank you for your attention, and I would like to say that it was just my point of view. So if you have any other experiences of it, or if you have just also different opinions, I would like to know them, because it would be really interesting. And thank you for your attention.